everyone to GolfCask. We're doing a bourbon flight today. So this was a beginner bourbon flight, and all my beginners that we were going to do this with all could not make it tonight. So we have three of us here tonight, uh, all different levels of our journey. And I don't know, just kind of guys jump in here. Bo, have you had these three?
So funny enough, Maker's Mark is probably what I started with before I even knew what the hell I was doing.
Okay.
Elijah Craig, I've not had a lot of, just a bad rap in the back of the head, right? Elijah Craig seemed kind of shellfish, so I hadn't have it. So I'm excited about that one. And then if you remember, we did Four Roses versus, can't remember who we did, but we did one of your World Series of golf
Oh
things or whatever.
yeah,
And
that
and
was
we
a
picked
but
the,
that was
both
a
of us
single.
picked.
That was a
Yeah,
single barrel. It's a
it
little
was a
bit better.
single barrel, but so I've not had the small batch, but I've had the Four Roses brand. Yeah.
And how would you rank yourself in the whiskey world? Newbie, casual, dangerous, or enthusiast?
I think I'd put myself in that casual end. I don't think I'm quite a newbie, but I'm damn sure not dangerous.
Oh, that's fair. You are actually you're drinking with Bo.
Well, it is true, but not necessarily in identifying whiskey.
How about you, Eddie? What three of these have you been able to enjoy?
Elisha Craig.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite bourbons. I am more kind of the barrel proof with the Elisha Craig or the toasted. I'm actually excited to go back to more. I hate to say basic, but the entry level Elisha Craig.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I actually had a sip of it yet. I haven't had the small batch in probably 2-3 years. So I actually opened the bottle 2 days ago and had a little tasting just to go.
Yep.
I don't even remember what this tastes like.
Hey, I just want to point out real quickly, gentlemen, if you look at the backdrops, this is how inadequate I should feel right now, and I should throw myself back in the newbie. It just struck me, and I've been to your place, Eddie, obviously been to Brian's place. Look at the shelves behind you, and look at this piddly little fucking pallet that I have sitting there.
What is that? is this in your garage or something?
It's all I could fit in the playroom upstairs.
All right. What we're going to do is go to a GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
It'll be, please help Bo with his indoor bar.
I need a
He is
shelf.
completely inadequate right now.
Absolutely.
And that's only one reason he's inadequate. We won't even go into
That
that.
is the only reason, Brian.
Okay.
We've never met each other. This is our first time. Shut up.
That's right. And Eddie, where would you rank yourself on the whiskey needle from newbie, casual, dangerous to enthusiast?
I mean, I think I would say dangerous.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think pushing past dangerous, possibly. Or definitely dangerous to your wallet.
Yeah. Yeah.
My retirement fund's on the wall.
To my wallet, yeah.
So, but
yeah,
no,
that's right.
I would say of these whiskeys, I think Elijah Craig is kind of, when I first started my whiskey journey, Four Roses was the whiskey that I had as a true bourbon. I had Bullet, which was a high rye. I had Four Roses, and then I had, I think Woodford. It's kind of my straight bourbon. And that was kind of my flight. And I hate to say it, Bullet was the moment where I was like, oh my God. Like Four Roses was ungodly sweet. I hated it when I first had it. I thought it was too sweet. Didn't like it. And then, like I said, then I had the Bullet, which was right. Now this does have some spice to it, but it was just different. And then, so Four Roses is one that you can see I do quite enjoy it. And again, for a small batch, it's pretty good. So let's just talk some label stuff real quick. These two are small batches. What does small batch mean? There's no real defined rule for small batch. It is called marketing. So in small batch, most people think, oh, it's like 2 barrels. They're bringing it together. The small. No, it could be 200 barrels could be their small batch. It could be 400 barrels is their small batch because they're mixing them together. So just be forewarned, if you see small batch, all small batch means is marketing.
Mix.
It's just marketing. It means it's smaller in size than maybe another brand or something that they do. However, there's no set rule that says a small batch must be this. So don't go crazy when you see small batch on a bottle. That is just beautiful marketing. So I figure what we'll do is we'll start with makers. We'll jump into Elijah Craig and we'll finish with Four Roses.
Will you ever see a small batch from a major distiller like a Makers or anybody like that? Or they don't even do that anymore?
Yeah, they all pretty much do small batches now. The reason they like to do, because if you want a whiskey to taste exactly the same day after day, week after week, year after year, the small batching is easier or Blended is easier because you take different barrels, and depending on how they age, you can make it fit the flavor profile.
Yeah.
And that's where Johnny Walker, a lot of the Scotch guys are just spectacular. Like when you go and taste a Johnny Walker blue, double black, red, whatever, it's got to taste like that. And they do that through blending because you can't do it out of a barrel. So like, I like Booker's, Booker's Jim Beam.
Yeah.
It's really good, but you can get a bottle of Booker's as a single barrel comes out, and it can be a little stringent, a little mean. So anything that comes out of a barrel can be, what you put in, what you can. It's never going to be awful, but it can be less pleasant. Where a blended is going to give you that same flavor all the time. So most of them now,
One more question. Would you recommend as a taster, and I'll just pretend I'll be the lowest end here, which I am. I see Eddie having that cigar. It's gonna conflate his tastes.
It could.
It could. Yes. Yes.
It could enhance.
I'm just jealous, Eddie, because I want to be smoking one too, but I can't do it in the house.
That's fair. Neither can I.
Come over to my place.
Yeah. My boss doesn't allow me to do that one.
No, mine either.
So like I said, we'll start off with Makers. If you saw last week's show, Makers again is a great entry whiskey, 90 proof. It is high wheat. Second grain is wheat. So the first grain is always in a bourbon. It's going to be corn. So this is a high wheat. So that means the second grain or the second highest grain in there would be a wheat. Wheat's going to give you what you think of wheat. When you think of wheat, you think of wheat bread, you think of pastries, you think of sweet, soft. It kind of gives you those notes. So Makers, again, is a great entry whiskey. I'm not the best wheated fan on earth. I'm grown to appreciate them more. I really like the Old Elk wheat. That's probably my favorite of the wheated right now. But to me, it's a good whiskey. It's a great starting whiskey. Easy to find, pretty cheap overall. Cheers, cilantro boys.
Cheers. It's so approachable on the nose.
Yeah.
It's
got all the bourbon flavors you want.
Yeah.
Because again, it's going to be in the barrel for 6 to 7 years, so it's going to have some oak. It's going to have the vanilla. It's got the corn. It's got the sweet. It's got the wheat that makes it soft. No rye, so you don't get that rye bite. Now, I remember last week, Mo said I got some spice. I actually later that night I kept sipping on it after the show was over, and I think the spice was actually coming from the oak. I think you were getting a little bit of spice from the oak barrel. I think that was the actual spice he was starting to pick up on. So that was kind of interesting.
Spice on the back end.
Yep,
that's what I get. I get a little bit on the back end. I can taste a little bit on the back end. Really vanilla-ish though. Really, to me, it's really sweet.
Yeah.
Which I haven't. I'll be honest. It's funny, Brian. Since we've started doing a little bit of this and drinking these others, I haven't been back to Makers. Like I said, it was the one I started with and loved it first, but I haven't been back to it.
For an entry whiskey, this is not bad at all. It doesn't linger, but it goes down smooth. Low bite at the end, low spice there. Almost reminds me of a rye at the end.
It kind of does.
And then it disappears. Yeah.
And mash bill wise, I think with Makers, you're looking at about 70% corn, about 20 some rye, and about 10-14 of malted barley. Yeah. So again, it is a bourbon. And it is a straight bourbon, and there's not an age statement. So again, anytime you see straight bourbon, it means it has to be aged. If there's no age statement on the bottle, it has to be aged 4 years plus. If it's under 4 years, they have to put an age statement on it. So a lot of times you'll see straight bourbon, and they'll put a 2. The reason they had to put a 2 on it is because it was under 4 years. So anything that says straight bourbon on the label and there's no number, it's at least 4 years or older. And I believe all of these 6 to 7. Maker says we do it to taste, we don't do it to time. So that's good marketing. Elijah Craig, I think it was kind of 8 to 12 is everything I saw about their kind of the barrels that they blend from. And I believe Four Roses was 6 to 8. So all of these are pretty well-aged bourbons. Most people say probably 7, 8 is kind of the honey spot for American whiskeys. That's kind of when you start getting older than that, you can bring more complexities, but you also start bringing a lot more wood flavors as well. So the danger is, as an American whiskey, if you got anything like, I just read a great article today that Glenlivet's has just released a 40-year-old single malt.
Woo.
Right? That's got to be an oak bomb. So if you think of it in American bourbon wise, we basically age twice as fast as a Scotch, right, or an Irish. So 4 years in a barrel for us is about 8 years for a Scotch. So a 40-year for them is like a 20-year-old bourbon. And if you've had even Elijah Craig 18 I've had, it's good, but it has definitely got some oak to it. So the longer it's in the barrel, you're just going to get more of that oak. And for some people, they don't like the flavor of oak very much, then the older proofs might not be your shindig.
And I totally agree. I mean, I had the 23-year-old Pappy, and compare that to the 12-year-old. I think the 12-year-old is much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And I actually learned. I don't know. I did a podcast on this. There's a guy named Rosenstiel that actually invented aged bourbons. So bourbons up through the Korean War was 2-3 years in a barrel, send it out, sell it, drink it. What he did is he thought the Korean War was going to go much longer than it did, and he thought there was going to be a run on whiskeys, and there was not going to be an amount left. So he clerically aired a couple thousand barrels in the back that were technically not there until there was going to be a run on it, and he's going to, oh, look at all this great whiskey I have. Well, the Korean War did not last very long. So then he ended up with all this whiskey that he couldn't get rid of, and they wouldn't let him sell it fast because all the other, the kind of the legend markets there, or the legend, like the bigger whiskey companies are like, you just can't flood the market with yours and kill us. So he really had to come up with it. So actually aged whiskey became, because of his greed and his clerical error. But once they started releasing the whiskeys, people just went crazy of it because the more complexity came, different notes, different flavors. So really the aged bourbon wasn't really a thing until after the Korean War, which I thought was
entrepreneurialism at its best.
Yeah, man. Well, greed.
You know what you can tell? You can tell why Makers is a good go-to for a lot of people, though. I mean, it is. It's an easy drink. I mean,
it holds up okay neat. It's not a lot to it. You get a vanilla, you get caramel, you get sweet.
You get a lot of the things you would expect to get from a bourbon. I mean, it's kind of like
it's like I said,
it's generic palate.
But again, to me, I told Eddie when we first got on, I said, all of these for me are all cocktailers. These are all the whiskeys I put inside of my different cocktails.
Yeah.
So the beauty is that there's a whiskey you don't like, it just becomes, you put it in your cocktail shelf.
Yeah.
So any thoughts on Makers, boys?
No, I've never had much Makers because to me there's better bourbons out there. But going back to the basics, this is not bad at all. I mean, I can definitely drink this neat.
It's held itself for a long time. I mean, it's a brand you'll find about anywhere, and a lot of people that don't know much about anything fall back on Maker. I mean, like I said, I used to do it, and then there's some. It's good. It's there's nothing you can't complain about it. It has nothing distinctive necessarily, but you can't complain about
it. Yeah, but they have really branched out, and now you have the single barrel
46. Yeah,
I really like the 46. I think
too.
46 is good.
That's actually what I gravitated towards, was the 46 when I was again less educated. That's just the one I gravitated. I liked it because it's just a little bolder. So
and I think that's the one in French staves, right? It's French oak, so it's got.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, European oak has got a little different. I've learned the woods. European oak's got a little less porous oak, so it flows differently, and it gets.
It's denser. It is denser. It grows faster out there.
He's in the lumber business. Look at me.
You got it, buddy.
It's better.
I'm not lying. All right, let's move over to Elijah Craig. Again, Elijah Craig. There's a lot of myths and stories about good old Elijah. Everyone said he's the father of bourbon. He's the guy that he was a preacher. He put it in charred barrels. It was him. There's no proof of that. It's a great story. Again, I think it's a lot of marketing. Elijah Craig was actually born in Virginia, which is cool. Which actually in Somerset, which is not too far from us. But Elijah Craig,
another friend of ours likes to tout that when he tells his story.
Yeah, that he is the father of.
Well, remember the Colonel Blind.
Oh yeah, up at the Foothills Distillery, Chuck.
Yeah, Foothills.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of preachers who started making whiskey.
Yeah, he was a preacher, and supposedly he was in the whiskey business. However, the father, nobody can quite tell you who the father is. But again, to me, this is a small batch. I do like Elijah Craig. I have a bunch of their barrel proofs. I actually have their toasted. I have a single barrel. I have their toasted. Elijah Craig, I think to me is a good traditional bourbon. It's going to be, it's got rye in it. You're going to get some of that rye bite. It's going to give you the typical flavors. But to me, again, it's one of my big brand wise is one of my favorites, which is under Heaven Hill, I believe, right? Doesn't Heaven Hill make Elijah Craig? Nice. On the nose, it smells like bourbon. Sweet, vanilla, a little bit of oak.
I cheated a little bit, and I read a note about it with these three just yesterday as I was just kind of looking at it, and I was curious because they put orange in their tasting notes, and I know that's probably dangerous to get a little cheat sheet, but I was just curious if I could even taste it. Yeah. Probably couldn't have, but there is a little bit of a fruitiness in there that's a little citrusy that I actually can pick up knowing it's in there.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a citrus tone to it. Kind of mid to late palate. You get this little wave.
It's not right out of the gate, but it's there. Yeah.
But out the gate, it's sugar. It's sweet. It's everything I think of a good bourbon, and then I get that little bit of rye in the background. Not a huge amount of rye bite. Not like some of the single barrels where it's a little more bitey, but to me, again, I don't think there's a bad Elijah Craig product. Like,
and this also lingers at the end.
Yep.
Yes, it stays with you. So yeah. And definitely
I like the finish though on this one a little better than the maker. Well, I mean, better than the makers. I think it's I don't know. I think it's cleaner and crisper to me on the finish. I think you wrap your flavors up, in my opinion. Where I think the makers lingers a little further down the throat with a little bit of spice. I get none of that here. I get a pretty clean finish.
Yeah, and I think makers ends pretty quick. I mean, I would say it's a short finish. It's kind of it's sweet. It's vanilla all the way through. You get a little bit of spice, a little warmth. And again, the beauty is these are all 90+ proof. So these are all getting more moderate in your proofing. And it was kind of funny. I didn't plan on doing all 90s across the board. I think Elijah Craig it's 94. But overall, it's, you're getting higher proof whiskeys. You're starting to kind of get out of that 80s. So you do get a little bit of that hug. From all three of these, you get that little bit of hug from the alcohol. You get that little bit of, you are drinking, ethanol. That's what we're doing. But I think, again, Elijah Craig, this one, I like the toasted a little bit better than the small batch. I love toasted whiskey, like the toasted rye. I'm a big fan of toasted barrels, and we'll do a whole episode on what barrels are and do a tasting with different barrels. But toasted, basically, they burn it at a lower heat for a longer time. It doesn't char the barrel nearly as much, and you tend to get sweeter, softer notes than a deep char. But we'll talk about all that in the future. But to me, what do you guys think overall? If you had to pick between Makers and Elijah Craig, if you had a friend coming over for the first time drinking bourbon, which one would you give them?
I'm Elijah Craig all the way.
Elijah Craig.
Elijah,
I agree. I agree.
If you had a friend that you didn't like too much, So
Eddie, I'm sitting right here, Eddie. I'm sitting right here.
Yes. Oh, damn.
if you had a friend that had a small pallet on the wall, with like,
if all you have is this, you give this guy Makers. No, I'm just kidding.
Is that a green spot over your shoulder?
It is. I do have some good whiskeys up there. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a small little shelf, but it's
little
some
Knob
good
Creek. Trying to see what else.
Got our Ragged Branch, our Blind Preacher. This is my staple. Well, you need to do this one day because I know it's a very staple, but I just love my Basil Hayden.
I have Basil Hayden somewhere around here. Up here. Basil's good.
I got that whistle pack.
Beam is like Elijah Craig. They don't make anything bad. I mean,
Knob Creek. I got a Knob Creek, which I've gotten to like again, and I've got that Whistle Pig that I bought, but it's not the farm stock rye. You
bought the Whistle Pig, the 6th.
I bought the Piggyback.
Piggyback, yeah. I like the Piggyback. I think it's an entry rye. It's really good.
Yeah.
I might even have.
We should do that. You need to do that farm stock rye sometime and do it. To me, that was about the most interesting profile I've had on a. We can taste this at the end, Bo, for an extra. Yeah, that farm stock rye was interesting. That middle oak sensation, which maybe is what you're talking about. Maybe it's the soak, but don't derail us. But it was a really interesting taste. The Whistle Pig 10, I have it up there somewhere. It's one of my favorites of the ryes. That's one of the first ryes I got where I got herbal, minty, total, like cooking herbs, like your oreganos and all that. Just completely different kind of. When you think of bourbon and you think of kind of maybe that's what that farm stock rye had in it, was some of those tastes. It was just the most unique. Took us forever, and it's not the nose, and it's not your first sip. It's what sits there right here before you finish, and it was just the boldest, most hearty kind of type of a flavor, and we couldn't figure it out. It was killing us. It was fun.
So yeah, try it again and think of like more of your not baking spicing herbs, but more like your green
Oregano,
herbs,
like you
and
said,
you'll kind of that mint, that piece.
leafy herbs.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you get a more earthy out of the rye than you do out of a bourbon.
That's a good way to describe it, earthy. Yeah. Anyway.
So, all right, and our third one is Mr. Four Roses here. And I've been doing a lot of research on Four Roses. I'm going to write a piece on it. And I thought one of the coolest thing about Four Roses that I've learned is that for a while, it was an international whiskey only. Made in Kentucky, shipped overseas, and was not sold in the States for many years. Huh. And then the conglomerate that owned it said, fine, we'll sell it locally. So the people that are making the whiskey can actually take it home and drink it and sell it locally. And it just kept picking up more and more steam. And it was on the chopping block a couple times, but it actually survived. And now Four Roses is, I think, one of those.
I'll tell you what, it's probably, now that we did that tasting, and it's one of those things where you buy a car and then you see it everywhere type thing. Yeah. Had no idea we did that tasting. I see this bourbon everywhere.
Four Roses.
I mean, you see this, it is out there everywhere. Restaurants, no matter what city you're in, you go to a place that has a decent bar, you're going to find a Four Roses of some version. It's crazy.
What do you get on the nose there, Eddie?
And this is a little softer.
Yep.
You still get the vanilla and the sweet notes, but it's more muted almost.
I would agree.
I mean, it's pleasant.
I get more fruity notes out of this, kind of of more of a
fruity
apple
caramel,
pear,
fruity caramelish,
kind of that fruity side more than I get like Elijah Craig maybe gives me a dark fruit kind of in the background, but I get kind of, I think more of an Irish whiskey, kind of those fruity, the lighter fruits than a dark fruit.
And Bo, I think you're right with the caramel.
Yeah.
Also, you said orange for the Elijah Craig.
You get that?
There's definitely.
I get citrus all over this one.
Yeah,
I don't get so much citrus. I get some berry. I get the caramel. I don't get the vanilla that I got out of the other two. But
no, I agree. I think the vanilla is there, but it's definitely not the. Yeah. I would say in the first two, vanilla was kind of number one.
Yeah.
And then caramel and the sweetness, but I think the vanilla is actually toned down, and I'm actually getting a little more of the sweet.
Yeah. Hey, just letting you know, my I think this app is draining my battery, so I'm down to 10%. So if I go dark, it's not that I don't like you guys, but
no problem.
It's just that you've already been drinking and you're 3 bottles in and you fall off the couch.
That's right.
I need some alone time.
In my whiskey lounge. My whiskey lounge is connected to my house, so I don't get it. I don't get that luxury. That door opens up and I don't know who's going to come running down the steps.
No, this door doesn't open up. This to me is the smoothest out of the three.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's the easiest drink to me.
Legs on the glass. It's that's very.
It's viscous. It's pretty thick for a cheaper whiskey. And again, all these whiskeys are going to be in the $20 to $30 range for a 750 milliliter bottle. So you're looking kind of on the lower end of the spectrum. And these are good, solid. Like I said, if I was going to start, any 3 of these would be a great one to go grab. I would say for more of a bourbon traditional note, I would say the Four Roses, because it gives you some of that rye. I don't think it's nearly as much rye as I get from the Elijah Craig, that little bite at the end.
You're right.
I think Elijah Craig has the best finish. I think, but overall, I think this is the smoothest. And then a Maker's Mark to me is just
I like the flavor profile on this one probably better than any total. Just the whole package from nose all the way through. This is just I just think it's just tasty.
It's smoother. It's a little more complex. It finished very, very soft. You don't get any burn at the end.
Yeah. No.
And the interesting part about Four Roses is I believe they actually 2 different mash bills are actually, so in their small batch, it's actually 2 different mash bills that they're pulling from, where all the other ones are going to be the same exact mash bill. So it's going to be the same whiskey, just different barrels to create a flavor. This one actually brings, and if you know anything about Four Roses, especially the single barrel, they use 5 or 6 different yeasts. And what you've come to learn, the more you learn about how whiskey production and flavor is, yeast is a huge piece in kind of the flavor profile. So Four Roses, depending on which yeast they use, can really create a different flavor. So each of their single barrels tastes a little bit different because they all use a different yeast. And then I've actually come to learn every dent in the still, the amount of how fast they put stuff into the still, how long they ferment it, what every piece from once they, even how they grind it changes the flavor profile. So once the grain actually comes into the warehouse, every step is a component to flavor. So again, when you think of these companies that can make these whiskeys taste exactly the same, like time after time, it's an art.
Oh,
a lot of science too.
yeah.
And the really big boys, they know whiskey on third floor, back corner, gets no sunlight, gets no air. It tastes completely different than whiskey aging on the second floor in the center where the door is open. So the cool thing is they know where it is inside the rick house, exactly what the flavor profiles are. And I actually talked with the Virginia Distilling Company people when I did a tour with them. And the distiller told me, she goes, I know when the barrel is at 4 years, I should get pineapple. I should get these notes. And so she can go around and say, even though this one's aged 3, but I'm starting to get the 4-year notes. So again, when they're blending, so that's again how kind of the blending works is, they like Makers says, we do it by taste, not by age per se.
I love the art to the science.
And again, if you get a blended whiskey and there's an age statement on it, the youngest part of the blend is the age statement. So if you have barrels that are 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 16 years, it's an 8-year blend. So you always have to go with the youngest number because they're worried that distillers just go, yeah, this is an 18. It's got that much 18 and the rest of it's 6. So so again, I think the hardest part in whiskey is understanding labels. Like when you go in and actually read the label, like there's a lot of BS going on there, and you got to understand what's real and what's not, and that kind of component.
Well, like you say, the marketing side of it, because it all sounds craft, right? I mean, that's the whole goal. Yeah. You want it to sound as craft as possible. So the small batch, but then you get to the single barrel. If you don't understand it, it's easy to just, oh man, look at this great whiskey for $40. You know, and it's good. Well, it can be really good, and then it also could not be quite as good. So
yeah, and especially Scotch. They are so famous for their story. Oh my God, this river came from the most incredible mountain, and there were unicorns that cried in this river. And
that's right.
Yeah,
we put one drop of unicorn teardrop in this.
This is my only Scotch bottle, but it was I drank it with my uncles up at the farm. It's a very smoky.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Ardbeg is it's one of the smokier ones actually.
Yeah, very smoky. It's very smoky.
No, what you'll have to drink what is it, Octomore with Eddie. Oh yeah. You want to talk about smoke, man.
But delicious.
Yes. You think you're a cigar when you're done with it.
Hey, so I got a question for you, B. So Christmas, my kids and the in-laws got me. It's from a company called Bear Skill, right? It's just whiskey accessories, it says, right? So I get this smoked oak cup, and there's some smoked oak, ice cubes and stuff. And I've had them, and I've put them on. I haven't put them on anything that I enjoy the taste of. I put them on probably like a Maker's Mark or something like that. You just kind of flavor it up. Obviously, it changes the flavor profile a bit. But have you ever heard of these accessories, like where they pre-smoke a cup and you put your whiskey in it, and then you get that smoky taste even if it doesn't maybe have it?
Yeah, I haven't seen the charred ones, but I've seen oak Glencairns and oak.
Yeah.
But again, you got to remember it takes years.
Oh yeah, no,
for the oak flavor to come through. The charred, maybe.
It's an initial lip thing.
Yeah.
That's all it really is. It's not. It doesn't change the profile or the flavor of the whiskey. That's not my point. It's just it was interesting to me, but again, I didn't want to put it on anything I really, really liked for its own flavor, because I'm like, well, this.
I think it'd be good with a cocktail. I would drink that with a cocktail.
Yeah, you put a cocktail in there, absolutely.
But for my smoked cocktail, I have a barrel head, so I take a blowtorch, barrel head. I actually light the oak on fire, put my cup over the top, let it fill up. And
that's the next thing is a smoker.
Barbarian, the Barbarian. I don't have a little smoker.
You have a smoker?
Blowtorch, oak barrel head, light it up.
Eddie, you got a smoker?
I do have a smoker.
All right. I'll be over there in a bit. Just give me an hour.
Just give me an hour. That's right. So I guess the $1 million question is of these three, if you had a newbie that came to you and said, I'm at a liquor store right now and these three are on sale, which one would you pick, or which would you tell them to go with?
Four Roses for me, man.
Four Roses?
I say Four Roses, Elijah Craig, and then Maker's Mark.
100% agree.
I would go Elijah Craig, Four Roses, Maker's Mark.
There you go.
I just like more the traditional. I like a little more level to the Elijah Craig. There's a little bit more going on. I think the Four Roses is good. It's smooth. It's got some flavors. But I like the Elijah Craig just a little bit better. So, but who am I to say? The key is try all three. And these three you should be able to find in airplane bottles. Like, you should be able to find majority of these little guys. So to me,
I didn't want to feel any more inadequate than I already do by bringing airplane bottles to a bottle dance.
Yeah, you would have gotten laughed at. I agree. However, it's okay.
Yeah.
But no, I think overall, I think we might have lost Eddie. I think overall, I would go. To me, I think the little bottles are a really good way to go, just on the sheer fact that
The
it costs
taste.
you $2, $3.
Yeah.
I actually saw Johnny Walker Blue in one the other day.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was like $20.
Well, I noticed that each one of us went and got your small bottle. We got the small bottles of the ones that we could, and then the Four Roses, we all have the big bottle because they're just not stupid.
They didn't sell that one in the little 200s. No, I agree.
The only problem though too is, as much as I love that you did this and you gave us some options, the bad thing is I ended up buying that Whistle Pig on top, so I would have gotten away with a nice discount. And then the wife goes, "Did you go to the liquor store?" And I said, "Yeah, but I bought just a thing for some tastings." And she goes, "It was pretty expensive." I said, "Well, then I had to buy a bottle of something I really wanted too."
All right, here, let's do a quick tasting of your piggyback. I haven't had this.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I went to Ireland last year.
That's what you said.
And we did a golf outing via GolfCask out in Ireland. And I brought Buffalo Trace, which is your classic bourbon.
Yeah.
And then I was like, let me bring some rye out there. And piggyback is, Whistle Pig's kind of the, you think of rye in the States. It's kind of I guess one of the granddaddy. Now, my favorite rye would actually
I will say you have put me on the rise, and I didn't think you would, but that Hannahsville rye,
High West Double Rye is really good too. I got that one back here in the corner.
That Hannahsville rye really is one of my favorite right now.
Yeah,
and it's a rye. And you remember one of the first times we ever sat down, I said, "Ryes are too bitey; they got too much spice going on, or whatever."
You hadn't had a good rye yet. But I gave these to the Irish guys, so they tried the bourbon. They tried the Buffalo Trace, and they're like, "It's too sweet, gross." And every one of them preferred the Whistle Pig over the Buffalo Trace.
Yeah,
because they like the spice and kind of the complexity much more than the sweetness and the vanilla of the Buffalo Trace. So.
And this is the one you took, the piggyback or the farm stock?
I took the piggyback because it was on sale.
This is. I hadn't had this one. I had the farm stock, which, like I said, had that really unique. Settling taste right in your throat. This is smooth. This is amazingly smooth.
So I got Whistle Pig 12.
Okay.
I have Whistle Pig 10. And then I only had the little ones I left my 2 bottles of Whistle Pig over in Ireland for my friend to have and share with other Irish blokes that wanted to try some American.
I'd seen it for years and just finally bought 1 bottle, and then man, it's just I dig it. I think it's a really good drink.
I get honey sweet right out the gate. I get herbal. I get kind of that herbal tone, and then all of a sudden, here comes the cinnamon. Here comes the pepper. Here comes
pepper. Not a lot though. It's not a heavy spice to me at all.
Most ryes, just a rye, are not super duper spicy. Typically, when I think of rye, I think of honey beginning, not caramel. I'm thinking more of honey sweet. And then you tend to get herbal, kind of that earthy because it is a grain. It is
Yeah.
along that lines. And then, like I said, you tend to get that peppery spice. But I would say the only difference between the whistle pick when you go from 6 to 10, 10 just has a little bit more complexity, a little more length, like in the finish. This one finishes pretty quick.
Yeah. What's the difference in the so I mean, rye's got people call it a bite or whatever. You call it a spice, a bite. It's more of just a biteness to it from the rye side versus the spice. Making that distinction is kind of a tough thing to do for me sometimes.
Yeah. Because again, when you get spices, it can come from different areas. It can come from the wood. A lot of people confuse the ethanol.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
hug, that
I
warmth.
used to do that. Now
Some people think of that as a spice, but that's just more of the proof.
That to me though was when you pointed that out, that was easy for me to get away from because that's typically on your initial because you're getting that flux up through your nose too, and so you can set that aside and go, I can't count that. You know, if it's a heavy proof one. I
almost get double mint gum on this.
That is unique. I do not get that.
Try knows it now. Think of double mint. Think of it. Think of when we were kids. You remember the commercial for double mints?
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is,
two beautiful blondes.
I get a really soft. It's a really soft finish to me. I mean, like I get my flavors up front, and then it's just a soft finish. And
no, I like the whole
double mint gum. You know what? I don't know if it's because you said it or not, but I can kind of. It's got to be
get
mental,
a little
right?
bit of
But
mint. There's the sweetness, and then there's just
not so much mint. It's almost that second flavor from that double mint. It's like that sweetness that comes with the mint.
Exactly. It's kind of cool. It's
almost want to say juicy fruit, but it's not quite juicy fruit.
No. I think literally if you had a double mint, I want you to do this next time you taste it. I want you to go get a pack of double mint gum.
Chew it.
No, don't even chew it. Just open up the package and just kind of smell that, and then go in there and nose it and see if I'm right.
So when you nose taste something like that, where you do if you think you're tasting something and you want to validate it, does it validate it or does it influence you?
Or
both.
So tasting is hard, right? So tasting is first you have to know the flavor, right? There could be flavors in there that I've just never had or never put a term to, and those are the ones that confuse you, right? Because I don't know what that tastes like, so I can't put a name to it. Like there's something in there, but I don't know what it is. But once you find that, so that's a piece. We're very suggestible. So if I say, find this, find that, that's why I don't like in tastings for you to read before we taste. Sure. Like if you want to go back after and read the tasting notes from the distiller or other people's reviews, great, do it. And go search, go see if you can find some of those flavors, because that might be the point there where you can hang that flavor to it. But you're also prestige and all that's, Pappy, whatever is so great. Well, Pappy's good if you like weeded bourbons, but there's a lot of really good weeded bourbons for half the cost that they're not Pappy, but they're good weeded bourbons that you would sit down and enjoy quite well. So again, to me, tasting is really challenging. Holding your nose when you taste. So I get a lot of people go, I can't taste anything. You hold your nose, you take a sip, and then you release your nose, and all of a sudden, all the flavors just come flying through. So as long as you can, so if anybody ever tells you I can't taste anything, say hold your nose, taste it, now release it, and they go, whoa, you can taste. Yeah. Now everyone's palate's different. Everyone has the ability. I do a lot of sensory training. I take different whiskeys that I know have different flavors, and I'll sit there and smell something. I have a sniff kit. I have one that I made myself. So I can sit there and I'll sit down here some nights and just pour something and just kind of taste on it and say, what notes can I pull? Can I find different stuff? And then, like I said, you can sit there with an orange, kind of the peel, get that really oily, orangey smell, and then try one or two whiskeys and say, can I pull that out? But once you can hang it, and to me, most tastings, it's a memory. To me, since your senses are to be able to hook it to a memory, you can recall it instantly. So, I was talking about vanilla. Vanilla to me is, I think of as a kid sitting in a garage with the old vanilla churn, making your own ice cream with the dry with the ice and the Epsom salts, and you're just sitting in the middle of July, sweating your ass off and just churning on a wheel. But that makes me think of vanilla because we always made vanilla ice cream. So when I smell vanilla, like the memories of that. Butterscotch is the same way. Christmas cookie. I think of it's cookies my mother made when I was a kid. And when I was tasting with Eddie a couple weeks ago, we did one that was like butterscotch crazy. Like I was just like, all I got was butterscotch. And he's like, I wouldn't have, he was sitting across from me because I didn't really notice the butterscotch much until you said it. Now he goes, now I cannot not taste it.
That's why I'm saying we are very influenced.
We're very suggestible.
If you've heard anything, it's easy to, oh yeah, I got that too.
Yeah.
But but there are some really common notes in bourbon. Why is that? So you got vanilla, caramel, obviously oak. We all know, you don't have to explain that one. But you got those perpetual, almost everybody says hints of vanilla and caramel. Is that just because the nature of bourbon lends itself? So why would they not put it on there, or do they try to get that in it?
Well, because corn is going to give you sweet. So if it's a bourbon, you're going to get sweet, and you're going to be in a charred barrel. So it's going to give you kind of that charred, cooked sugar opposed to just sugar,
which is your caramel.
So so a lot of times when you go with scotches, and depending on what they age it in and how they age it, you can get different oaks, different flavors. But traditionally, corn really gives you that buttery. Because again, what is caramel? It's sugar and butter. Right. So what is corn? Buttery, sweet, in the barrel. So that's how you kind of get that caramel. You might even get maybe a toffee or something along that lines. So that's really driven by the barrel and things along that line. So a lot of bourbons, like I said, if you go to a whiskey tasting and you know nothing about whiskey, know that your first sip is little, let it burn. Don't pay much attention to it. Second sip is where you'll get your flavors and you'll really kind of grow accustomed to it. And if you say vanilla, if you say caramel,
you sound like you're really
say oak, you're okay.
Yeah, you get a lot of oak to it, and there's caramel and vanilla and
I would say,
then every now and then you just throw in, and I get this minty double mint gum thing, and everybody goes, "Oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah."
What was funny is when I first started tasting, it was like me like, me no like, right? And then it was like me like because of vanilla. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, it's got vanilla in this and this. And then I'm starting to notice this. I don't know what that is. Let me go figure out what that. Oh, that's actually kind of like a dark fruit. So like a dark cherry or a plum, kind of that sweet but tart, like a dark red fruit. Or, a lot of times with your Irishes, and even this one, you get kind of that pear, apple, orchard sweetness is different than the black cherry plum sweet. So you'll start to classify inside of your groups. And the beauty is you taste what you taste.
Yeah, you do. No, for sure. And you
can't deny. And if somebody tells you that you taste something and they look at you and say, no, that's not in that. Like, you know what we call
it is to me. Right.
You know what we call them? We call them assholes. Sorry. Because you can't tell me what my flavor profiles are. Who you might not be right.
So out of curiosity, and I'll stop asking questions, but out of curiosity, so when you do end up reading a flavor profile from a distiller, granted, hopefully you did it after you tasted it. I know I cheated a little bit. But when you read one and they say red berries or orange, are they purposely putting that in there, or is that what just came out of the flavor? I mean, or is it a combination? Is that how they're tasting it and what they're sensing, or are they putting that in there in some way?
No, you don't know. Like if it's from the actual distiller, they're probably going to be pretty close, but they usually use instead of saying orange, they'll go like Spanish, apricot, but they tend to have those notes, right? They're not. But again, you got to think a master distiller's palate's going to be very, very good and very, very understanding of his whiskeys. Yeah. I think a lot of reviews online, if you go to some of the bigger review sites, I think you can get some really good information there as well. Yeah. But again, I've tasted a lot of things and see people go, don't you taste this? I'm like, I don't get it. And again, taste has to do, what did you just have for dinner? Like we ate Mexican tonight, so I ate a lot of spicy food. So this is all tasting a little bit different than probably if I taste it 2 days from now. So again, I think, and if there's a whiskey you really don't like, just don't like, put it away for a couple days, a couple weeks, circle back, try it again. Yeah. Always circle back and give it a second chance. If you try it again the second time and you don't like it,
get rid of it. Give it to that buddy that you think
that you don't like. Well, I have a Japanese bottle on here that I can't give away to anybody.
Hey, listen, look at this. Same thing. Boss of mine gave it to me, and I hope he never watches this. But but I do not like this at all. I have tried and tried. I do not like it.
Let me see if I have mine. I think it's down here. In the
pure malt too, and maybe it's the malt. I don't know. It's just I don't like it. I can't get it to reach.
This one, not a fan.
Not good. That looks
Not to me.
really, really light. It
Look
almost
how
looks
light
like
that is. It
wine.
looks like
Yeah, that's what
wine.
I'm saying. Yeah.
But no, not a fan. I
Yeah.
paid like $60 for that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I have literally tried to give it away to 3 or 4 different people, and everyone's like, nah.
This guy was not a whiskey guy, and he said, I went to the liquor store and I said, what's a really good whiskey? And he's like, take this Japanese thing. And I think the guy was probably doing what you're doing. He goes, I can't sell this stuff here. This moron doesn't know. Give these bottles away.
Well, I think it's a lot like wines too, right? You go into a wine shop and you're like, oh, give me a good bottle of wine, and they put you over here in this older wine, and it's $150.
Doesn't mean anything.
I've had $150 wine that's just
right. Absolutely.
I mean, like so the same thing. I think, and that's again the beauty of whiskey clubs, bottle shares with friends.
Mm-hmm.
I've done bottle shares where we all throw in $20 a head, and we go get a really, really nice bottle of whiskey, and we just sit down one night and we just divide it up that night, and we enjoy it and drank it, and I get a pour and a half. Which if I had gone to a whiskey bar for that, I'd have paid probably $80-$90. So it's much cheaper, and it's a good way to do it, kind of divert costs. But again, go to whiskey bars, join clubs, societies, and of course,
GolfCask.
It's okay to have an airplane bottle.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that. So any other questions, Bo, before we wrap this puppy up?
No, I'm good, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. That was awesome.
No problem. Next Wednesday night, we will actually have Dr. Mike Grevlos. Nice. So more for the golf side. He's going to jump in, I think 9:00 next Wednesday, and he's going to do a whole hour with us, and he's going to talk about goal setting and why most people. It was kind of funny. We talked about dates in January, and I said, "Hey, how's the end of the month? How's the 29th?" He goes, "Perfect." He goes, because most people have already set New Year's resolutions and they've already failed. He goes, this will be the perfect time for me to come in and talk about goals. But more so, goals only are accomplished if you understand motivations. And his whole kind of, a lot of his body of work is he's an actual professor at in South Dakota. So he's actually a college professor, has been teaching for 25, 30 years. But his whole kind of, I guess, main part of study is about motivations. Nice. So he's a really cool guy, really fun to hang out with. So we're going to meet with him next week. And then I think what I'm going to start doing is I think every Wednesday night, I'm just going to start coming on live. Wednesday night, 8:00. I've talked to a couple of distillers. I'm going to bring some distillers in. We'll have some people come in. We'll drive their whiskeys and talk with the distiller, and they can take you through it and just talk whiskey. So I'm going to start to bring that in. We'll
just
keep
push it out so we know what it is. If we can go find it, that'd be awesome.
So we'll do sensory training. I'm getting ready to send February's out. So we're going to do sensory training. I think in February, what would you rather do? Would you rather do Tennessee whiskeys? Or would you rather do kind of taste around the world? We could do like a Scotch, an Irish, and a bourbon. Or we could do 3 Tennessee whiskeys. Because I think in March we'll do Irishes just because it'll be St. Patrick's month.
Oh, that's good.
So we can do Irish.
That's good. My vote would be then if we're going to do the Irish and stuff in March for that. It's a good theme. Let's just do the Tennessee. That'd be fun. Right.
So we'll do 3 Tennessee whiskeys. So you're looking at probably Jack Daniel's version of something.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
And then Dickel.
Yeah.
What are some of the other Tennessee brands? Nelson Brothers. I'll look through my list, but we'll come up with 3 good Tennessee whiskeys. Here's a fun fact about Tennessee whiskeys. Why are Tennessee whiskeys not bourbons?
Ooh. But it's got to be something to do with the. I'm going to guess either the geography or the barrel configuration.
Well, most people think because Tennessee whiskey does Uncle Nearest would be another good Tennessee whiskey. Most people think with Kentucky or with Tennessee whiskeys, they actually pour the last step before they barrel it. They pour it over a charred maple.
Huh.
So most people think that's why it's not a bourbon because they actually filter it through charred maple. It's not the reason. Most Tennessee whiskeys are bourbons. They're 51% corn. They're distilled, they're 80 proof or better in a bottle. They don't distill any higher than 160. They don't put it in the barrel any higher than 125. They do everything that a bourbon is. The reason it's different is they wanted to disassociate with Kentucky. So they created their own rules for Tennessee whiskey. So Tennessee whiskey has to be in the state of Tennessee, and it has to use the Lincoln County process of pouring over maple. but it is a bourbon. It
a
has all the
By
components.
rule, it's a bourbon. It just they made their own.
They just wanted to differentiate between them and Kentucky. But yeah, they
they
are
wear a
bourbon.
they wear a really crappy version of orange on their football team too. So
They do.
Tennessee people are what they are.
So they're not a bourbon by choice. But I thought a lot, because people would say Tennessee whiskeys are not a bourbon. I thought it was really because they poured it over maple, but it doesn't sit in the maple, so it's not really pulling flavor notes from it. They just use it as.
I was about to say, so just pouring it over there can't possibly give a lot of flavor.
No, it's actually
because the oak flavor from a barrel, it's the in and out of just sitting there over time. It's not just a dump it over. Yeah, it's just like this. I was just talking about. This might give you a nose or an initial taste, but it doesn't do anything to the actual bourbon once you get it in your mouth.
I think it's probably giving you more olfactory than anything. It's just giving you that smell of smoke, and I think it kind of just smoke. Because again, olfactory, 80% of your tasting is really coming from your nose. The rest is coming from your eyes and your taste and things like that. But no, I think we'll do Tennessee whiskeys. That'll be kind of fun. So
there you go.
I'll
That'll be fun.
I'll get that newsletter put together this weekend.
You can put Jack Daniels in there, as common as it is, like this Maker's Mark. That'll be fun to have a comparison.
Jack's. Do you want to do number 7, or do you want to do one of the other Jacks?
I'll look through the Jack repertoire and maybe throw you a list. But number 7, you can't beat. That's the standard, right?
Oh, you can beat. I hate
for them.
7.
For them. I know. When I say the standard, that's their standard, right?
We'll do number 7. We'll do number 7. Maybe we'll do 2 Jacks and a Dickel.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Common names, but put a educated taste palette to it and try and see what you come up with.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Jack Daniels makes really good whiskey. It's just not number 7.
Yeah. Well, to me, Jack is always the mixer cocktail whiskey.
Jack number 7, old number 7. That is Jack and Coke. That is sweet, sugary, and
that's all they want it to be. They don't even care. That's what that is. That's meant to be mixed with ice in a cup about this big.
I've traveled all over the world, and you cannot go into a single bar anywhere in the world without old number 7 somewhere.
Yep.
I mean, I've been in Copenhagen, Germany, Ireland, UK.
Sure.
It's everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Old number 7's everywhere.
Asia loves number 7.
No, I've known a lot of people that like old Jack is kind of their whiskey, but it's not bad. It's just not my favorite. So so we will do Jack old number 7. Maybe Beautiful. We'll do one of the Jack barrel proofs.
Okay.
They have a good rye. They have a good barrel bourbon. I'll go look through the shelves and look at the ABC stores, see what's easy to find. I think a couple of them actually are in the actual. They have a couple of them in the actual airplane bottles as well. I'll see what those are, and then I'll put that together.
Let me tell you a funny story real quick, if you got a minute, and you can cut it out later. But I'll tell you a story. So I'm sitting up there, and we're our company is hiring another part to our leadership team, and so the rest of us got together for dinner and interviewed him and took him to a nice steakhouse and stuff up in Pittsburgh, and it has a beautiful cigar bar and a whiskey bar upstairs, and we like to go up there a good bit, and it's just perfect. It's the old red couches, it's everything wood, smells like whiskey, smells like man, and just all that stuff, right? So we're up there drinking, and I had introduced this guy to the position, and so I'm sitting there, and I have my pretentiousness that you put on me, Brian, from having a little bit of knowledge, just a little bit of knowledge. And so he's like, well, so you like whiskey? And because I had ordered the Whistle Pig and all this stuff that they had on there. And he goes, so you like Woodford? And I'm like, you know what? I used to like Woodford a lot, but it's just kind of become, it's kind of become my Maker's Mark, right? It's like Woodford. It's good. The double oak has some decent flavor, but it's just basic. And so we walk out after a couple hours up there, and we're walking out, and he goes, hey, man, I got you something for just introducing me to this opportunity. And he walks to his car and pulls out a bottle of Woodford that I had just sat there and trashed. All the guys that were with me looked, and they're like, there's only one bottle that looks like that. You just put your foot in your mouth, dude.
There is only one. Woodford bottle is very Actually, Bo, I took a little of your Whistle Pig 6.
Yeah.
And I put it just a little bit into the Four Roses.
Oh. How's that go?
I would drink that.
Yeah?
I would drink that.
I'm gonna try
I put it in the Makers. It was terrible. It was awful.
You did both. Have you done that often where you've mixed
I've blended on occasions just for fun.
You said the Four Roses?
So just put a little itty bitty bit of the Whistle Pig and probably 2 to 3 times the amount of the Four Roses. and it actually gives you a good little flavor.
It's decent. I get more of the Four Roses flavor coming through it than I do the Whistle Pig.
Yeah, so put a little more Whistle Pig. Just
Right,
kinda
exactly.
tinker with it. No, you just tinker with it. So I did a show way back when. It was Rare Breed,
Yeah.
the barrel proof wild turkey, and I mixed
Yeah.
it with Whistle Pig 10. So so basically it was, what was the math? I actually went through and did the math, and it was so it was, I think it was 3-1, 3 Rare Breed to 1 of Whistle Pig, and it actually, I called it a making bacon or something like. It was good. It
I was
was.
going to ask, is there a science to your?
I was actually sitting there with. I actually did the math. I proofed it down. I actually used water. I wanted to find a good proof, and then I added the different whiskeys, and I just kind of played around with ratios.
Sure.
And I think it was 3-1. It was actually decent. Like, because Rare Breed's already got a lot of rye in it, so then I'm just adding more rye on top of it. So it was really kind of playing with that. But they say if you take Larceny, and you take Maker's Cask, and you mix it in the right scenario, you can make the poor man's pappy.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So next time you come to my house, we'll do a thing.
Yeah.
We'll make.
That'll be fun to play with.
I have Larceny on there, and I have the Maker's Cask. Maker's Cask is really good. Have you had their cask strength?
I have not.
It's probably, I like 46. It's good. I really like their cask strength. It's a little bitey, a little punchy. It's like 110 proof. It's good. So that's another one to think about in the future. We'll have to get your little shelf bigger.
There you go. I know. I'll expand it by next time. I promise. I'll have it out.
GoFundMe page.
Put one down below too, so it looks better.
That's right.
Might start drawing it on the wall just so you all think there's bottles.
We'll have to get you a better camera too.
I know.
All right, Bo. We'll wrap this puppy up. Thank you for joining us. Eddie, thanks, even though I don't, Eddie was lost battery. And hey, man, thanks. See you next Wednesday. Mike Grevloss will be here. And like I said, just mark every Wednesday, 8 p.m. We'll get this thing rolling, and we'll do a bunch of different stuff. And go to golfcast.com. Join us. It's free right now. There will be a fee in the future. So if you like it free, you better show up soon. Golfcast.com, and there's lots of content already there, producing stuff every day for that. And thank you all for joining us.
Go
Cheers.
Commanders.
Go Commanders. Heck no. Hail the Redskins, baby.
Hail to the Redskins. Later, B.
I've had too many years of Redskins for me to ever be able to say the Commanders. I hope he changes the name to something else.
They're talking about it out here. That's awesome.
It doesn't have to be the Redskins, but it can't be the Commanders.
Can't be the Commanders.
It can't. Anything that has anything to do with Snyder just needs to go away.
Yes, it does.
So,
Amen.
all right.
Later.
So be cheering on those Redskins, Commanders, Washington, the team formerly known as the football team, Washington, whatever you want to call them, and hopefully they'll beat those Eagles. Unless you're an Eagle fan, but I still want you to lose.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cilantro.
See you, man.
Thanks, brother.
Bye.